Hello, my friends. This is part 3 of BMW R11RT-P Authority Model Bargain or Bust. In part 2, I spoke to you of this particular machine. This was a 98 model R1100RT-P, and this was BMW North America's demonstrator that I put out to several police departments around New Hampshire. When none of them were willing to buy this machine, BMW decided to get it off its inventory and sell it to a civilian. My friend was able to purchase this machine where driving lights were added and better suspension installed. So I raised the radio box a few inches to slip a fuel cell below it. A fuel bladder was made, 4 more gallons of fuel capacity tied into the main tank with a pump and a switch, so that you could extend your riding pleasure between stops. Unfortunately, this particular bike was destroyed by a tractor trailer backing into it at an intersection, and my friend was able to keep it, however, and replace it with another. A 2000 R1100RT-P was found in New York State, USA. This was a sheriff's department bike that had been sitting in the municipal garage for 2 years with only 8,000 miles on it. It was ready for auction. My buddy was able to get it, and immediately it went into my shop. He had plans. My shop's tiny, 400 square feet. 20 feet by 20 feet. It's actually a little bit smaller than that. There isn't a whole lot of room in there when you're running your whole business out of such a tiny space. Your office is there, your inventory is there, it's your workshop where your tools go and everything, so there is not much space for large projects like this. But I took this on, and this bike came apart. As you see here, it has the 3-spoke cast wheels. This was because California Highway Patrol has a requirement that their motorcycles must be able to travel a distance of 10 miles at 60 miles per hour on 2 flat tires without the tire coming off the bead. The cross-spoke wheels failed this test, despite the wire cross-spoke wheels from the GS models being a stronger wheel, which you would want on a machine that's going to be slamming over curbs and through potholes in city streets and all of that sort of abuse that a municipal vehicle would receive. It didn't meet this test for the California Highway Patrol. However, the 3-spoke cast wheels passed with flying colors, so that's what the police bikes got from there on in the United States. Canada still got the wire wheels, as did most of the rest of the world. These particular 3-spoke wheels from this machine were going to be powder-coated white, along with a few other parts. You see here the rear drive. The rear drive was disassembled because the housing was to be sent out and be powder-coated white. The police bike has a lower ratio rear drive than the civilian model. Therefore, it is quicker. Is it faster top end? No. It's quicker. It's still moving a lot of weight, and it's still a lot of width. It's a big barn door of a motorcycle going down the road. It needed the lower gearing. Another benefit of the lower gearing was reduced surging. The brakes on the R1100RT-P are the same as the brakes on the R1100RT civilian model. There was no difference. The R1150RT-P is a whole different story, and I'm going to get into that when we reach R1150RT-P. In comparison with the 98, the side stand is different. No longer is it deployed from a location between the rider's foot peg and the shift lever. A tang has been added to the back to extend it so that the side stand is deployed aft of the rider's left foot peg. This allows for deployment and dismounting the machine from the right while the engine is still running without fear of knocking it into gear and embarrassing the motor officer at the beginning of his stop by the bike falling over. Length of service. Yes, I mentioned that this machine was sitting in a municipal garage for 2 years with merely 8,000 miles on it. These are generally used for 3 years, 60,000 miles, whichever comes first, and then they're off to auction. As I mentioned in an earlier segment, BMW's offering of how departments could get these machines is not very generous, and it was nowhere near as nice as Harley's plan. Most departments tried to get the most out of these machines, and that was its 60,000 mile service life, and BMW was willing to buy them back within 3 years, and not after that. So, length of service, 3 years, 60,000 miles, and then all the police equipment was hacked out of it and sent away. It wasn't the case with this one. No hacking had happened to this one, luckily. So, the parts went out to the powder coater, who turned a big project into a bigger project. The powder coater goofed up a couple of colors, and then the powder coater tried to correct that by recoating them, and that didn't work so well. The bike was delayed quite a while waiting for parts. The powder coating problems persist. The first powder coater flaked out on us. A second powder coater was sourced who was able to rescue most of the parts. When it came time to reassemble this project, my buddy decided that he wanted an aftermarket exhaust and was talked into a computer chip by the company that sells the aftermarket exhaust. We were already into brake discs and pads and hoses and such. So here we are with an exhaust system. The day that it arrives, we open it up, we start to fit it, and we find that it's missing a part. The supplier refuses to send the part. They want the whole kit boxed up and sent back to them, and they'll send another kit after they inspect it and find that the part is actually missing. This is not acceptable. This bike is leaving for Daytona in 1 week. This is the kind of ridiculous schedules I get boxed into. This thing's taken so long, it's almost bike week, and my buddy wants his bike for bike week. This exhaust doesn't fit. It's missing one piece, which is just a piece of pipe, easy enough to obtain. Weld a piece in. The exhaust is all set. The computer chip is installed. I've worked for digital before. I've handled computer chips. It's nothing new. Static free. Do it carefully. Motronics back together. Bikes back together. It comes time to test the bike. Turn the key on. Things aren't right. Immediately, the fuel injectors go wide open. We're pumping raw fuel right out of the header. Not good. This Motronic's damaged. Remove the chip, put the stock chip back in, and things are not right. things are not right, but we're not getting fuel into the exhaust anymore. Remember bike number one, the one wrecked by the tractor trailer, the bike that became the parts bike? This is where this was of immense benefit to have a parts bike. The replacement Motronic at the time was $1,800. We were able to take the one from bike number one, put it in bike number two, and voila, the bike started right up. No more fuel dumping into the header. No such silliness. So here's bike number two running on bike number one's computer with an aftermarket exhaust. That is so loud, my friend says, shut that off and send it back. I'm never riding that machine. That thing is obnoxious. Well, the distributor didn't want it back because we welded that piece in so that this machine would be ready to go where it needed to go. So that ended up costing my friend whatever the exhaust cost, because they wouldn't take it back. And they wouldn't take his computer chip back that they sold him for several $100s. And they wouldn't pay for his Motronic that was destroyed for $1,800, or even offer to compensate him for anything. This computer chip was sent just in a paper envelope, not wrapped in a foil, not in a box, nothing. So I don't know if it got microwaved along the way or some sort of damage, but it shorted out that Motronic computer, and that would have been the end of that had it not been for having the wrecked bike number one around. With that and the stock exhaust back on it, that bike was on the road and headed to Florida. And that bike went several years in use. And I'd have to talk to my buddy to find out how many tens of thousands of miles he put on that machine. But it was pretty well wanted and ended up being traded in for another authority model. But that's a story for a later time. That wraps up this segment. I am going to answer more of your questions in part 4. These are going to be told. I'm going to tell you about some of the interesting authority models that I worked on, and in the process answer some of the questions that have been asked to me. When I'm at the end, when I reach that final segment of this series, R11RT-P authority model, bargain or bust, when I reach that last segment, I'm going to show a whole bunch of questions and I'm going to answer every one of them. Stay tuned, my friends. Thank you for your support. My patrons are keeping these videos on the production table. Thank my patrons. Without them, you wouldn't be seeing these videos on YouTube. Thank you. Take care. You'll see me again very soon.